$600 or...
People haven't warmed to Camilla as they warmed to Diana, but the polling does seem consistently to suggest that his support has diminished in recent years, and certainly that of Camilla becoming queen. It's only a very small percentage of people that support that prospect.
That may well be so. The fact of the matter is, of course, that she will become queen. He did tell us at the time, when they got married, that she would be known as Princess Consort. And if I was advising him, I would suggest that he reiterated that point, because I think that's what we were told, and we need to be consistent about these things. And indeed, should it be that he did say that, perhaps one or two people might say, well, hang on, actually, she has done rather a good job, and we would like her to be queen. I think it would be a pity if he inflicted that on us, as it were. The fact is that I think perhaps the second marriage hasn't been terribly well spun in certain ways, because the job of the Prince of Wales is obviously to continue the Protestant succession. He's got two boys, that's splendid. If I was presenting Camilla to the world, I would say, look, he went through a rough time. Maybe partly his fault, maybe not. And, he just wants to have the companionship, which is the right of many citizens, which I think people would understand. She's not going to have any more children or anything like that. So, in a way, she's there to sort of be his supporter and his companion. I think she does a pretty good job of that, actually.
Hugo Vickers, a historian from Tom Bower, now a royal biographer. One of the many representatives at the latest meeting of the Commonwealth Heads of Government has been the Australian Prime Minister Julie Bishop, who reaffirmed her country's commitment to the Commonwealth, at least for now.
Australia has a long-standing position, and that is to support the British monarch as the head of the Commonwealth. I think it has to be above an election. We think that the connection with the British monarchy has been so strong and powerful. And when it began, the modern Commonwealth, there were only 8 members. Today, there are 53. And I think that speaks volumes about the relevance of the Commonwealth to many nations.
That was Julie Bishop. If you'd like to join the conversation on this, tweet us at BBC NewsHour, or you can tweet me directly at BBC Tim Franks. You're listening to NewsHour from the BBC World Service.
Support for this program comes from the Women's Foundation of Minnesota. With Best Buy, they're building pathways to STEM careers for girls that ensure leadership, opportunity, and a strong Minnesota workforce for tomorrow. WFMN.org.
Programming is supported by Discover St. Louis Park, offering food, shopping, and outdoor adventure with small-town charm, minutes from big city attractions. Additional visitors information at discoverstlouispark.com. St. Louis Park, Minnesota's sweet spot.
More world news from the BBC in just a second here on Minnesota Public Radio News. The story we're following closer to home today. There will be no criminal charges in the death of rock superstar Prince. Details in the newscast at 3, as well as full reporting during All Things Considered. Today's forecast, sunny and warmer. Boy, those are some sweet words. Highs today should reach into the 40s across the south. We're seeing some mid-50s in northwestern Minnesota, 54 in Moorhead right now, 49 in the Twin Cities.
This is NewsHour, live from the BBC World Service in London. I'm Tim Franks. It's more than 8 months since the Islamic State group was defeated in northern Iraq. It will take years for the group's hundreds of thousands of victims to rebuild their lives if they ever can. But they're not the only ones who still live with the consequences of IS's reign of terror. Thousands of foreign IS fighters and their wives travelled to join the organisation. Many of the men were killed, but a large number of IS women and children have simply vanished without trace. What happened to them? Tim Hewitt reports now from Russia and Iran. History has left many desperate relatives in limbo.
This is my Seda. When she was still at home.
I'm in Chechnya, southern Russia, and a middle-aged woman in a bright headscarf called Malika Inakayeva is trying not to cry. She shows me a video of her daughter Seda.
She loved anything with a brand name. Bags, clothes, shoes. They're still here, but she left at home.
I could tell you the story of every single thing she had booked.
But that was before Sieda's husband took her on holiday to Turkey in 2015. Sieda never came back. Her husband took her further south to join Islamic State.
И через 2 недели она опять вышла на связи с очень долго. 2 weeks later, she got in touch again on WhatsApp. She was just crying. And then she said, Mom, we're in Syria. For me, the world fell apart at that moment.
3 years on, IS is largely defeated. Sieda's husband and other IS fighters are dead. But where is Sieda? She and her 2 children disappeared without trace. And she's just one of the many, many Russian women now missing in the Middle East. Iraq hasn't given out the names of any IS families it's holding, or of any found dead. But in December, the faintest of voices broke the silence.
There are about 200 of us here, all Russian speakers.
It's the voice of a woman called Roshana, sending a message to her sister in Moscow from somewhere in Iraq. But where exactly were they, and who was holding them? A later message from another captive gave the answer. It was Hashd Shabi, the military force attached to the Iraqi army, and a commander called Abu Jafar al-Shabaki. I wanted to go to Iraq to meet him, but not to put the women at any greater risk. Then, when I was already there, they were finally transferred, after 6 months, to official custody, following pressure from the Kremlin. I was now free to confront Abu Jafar.
Let me ask you something about the women and children. We've seen messages from them, and they were in terrible conditions. Women and children, it was cold, it was wet, you know, they had 1 toilet, 1 bathroom for 200 people.
No,
But we've
it's not truth.
but we've seen messages from them.
How?
Well, because they got messages to their relatives in Russia. We've seen those messages.
How you can...
But it's terrible. I mean, they describe, you know, how the guards were beating them. You know,
This is wrong, of course.
they're sleeping on a concrete floor. 100 people in 1 room. The children have got pneumonia. And we're talking about children.
This is not right.
In fact, it's almost impossible to get access to Iraqi jails. We still don't know which IS prisoners are there. 8 months on, grandmothers like Malika in Arkaeva still have no idea whether their daughters and grandchildren are dead or alive, when or if they'll ever come back.
I don't make any excuses for anyone who took our children there. I just want my daughter to come home.
Malika in Arkaeva, we met by Tim Freak with more on Tim's story all this week on assignment here on the BBC World Service. A group of unusually talented nomadic sea divers in Southeast Asia could offer lessons for the treatment of people who suffer from hypoxia, or sudden loss of oxygen during operations. A new study published in the journal Cell, CELL, says that the Bajau have evolved larger spleens because of the amount of time they spend underwater. Melissa Ilano is a scientist from the University of Copenhagen and the lead author of the study.
So we have found that the Bajau, who are this population who, because of their lifestyle, are diving all the time, have actually evolved to be better divers. And the way that they've done this is by evolving a larger spleen size. And what the spleen has to do with diving is that the spleen is kind of like a biological scuba tank. So it's storing these oxygenated red blood cells. And then when you dive, it contracts, pushing the red blood cells into your system and giving you an oxygen boost.
The key thing that you said there was that they've evolved these spleens. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so it was important for us to find out whether this was just something that could happen because of repeated diving rather than something happening at the genetic level. And so we looked into that by measuring the spleen sizes not just of Bajau divers, but also of Bajau people who aren't diving. And so there we found that their spleen sizes, whether they were diving or not, were roughly the same statistically. And so this tells us that the act of diving does not do anything to enlarge spleen size.
And they've been diving for generations, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. They've been recorded to be diving for probably at least 1,000 years. We're not really sure how much further before that.
How extreme is their diving?
There's not that much data about it, but from what I've seen and what people have reported, they're diving generally from around 30 seconds to several minutes at a time. And this is very active and functional diving. So they're diving because it's their livelihood. But they did tell me that they could dive for around 13 minutes at a time. And they've been shown to dive to up to 70 meters deep. And that's with no equipment, simply a weight belt and wooden goggles.
It's amazing. Now, I mean, it's extraordinary in itself what they do, but you're suggesting as well that it might have a practical application for the rest of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a lot of medical implications because hypoxia or low oxygen is an important issue in a lot of different medical contexts. So we're hoping that what we can learn from how the Bajo have adapted to low oxygen conditions can teach us something that could be useful for medicine.
But in what way?
So in a lot of critical care situations, for various reasons, people will have a sudden drop in oxygen. And from the physicians and anesthesiologists that I've spoken with, it's really hard to predict how individuals will react to these conditions. And it could be that this variation in how they're reacting has an underlying genetic basis. And so we're hoping that what we learn from the Bajo might tell us something about why different individuals react differently to a sudden drop in oxygen.
Oh, so in other words, you'd be able to work out whether people are predisposed to hypoxia?
That's one thing that we would like to look into, yeah.
And in terms of the Bajo themselves, is there any downside potentially to having these enlarged spleens?
Well, that's certainly something we would like to look into, especially because we think that the large spleen size is connected to higher levels of this thyroid hormone. And hyperthyroidism is an issue that causes a lot of health problems for people. So they seem to be healthy, but it's definitely something we'd like to look into.
That was Melissa Ilado. She's from the Centre for Geogenetics at the University of Copenhagen and lead author of that study into the genetic adaptations to diving in sea nomads. Dare say we haven't done anything quite like that on NewsHour in now almost 30 years of broadcasting. Plenty more to come in the next 30 minutes.
Distribution of the BBC NewsHour is supported by Babbel, a language app that teaches real-life conversations in a new language like Spanish, French, or German. Babbel's 10 to 15-minute lessons are available in the App Store or online at Babbel, BABBEL.com. And by Home Advisor, matching homeowners with background-checked professionals for a variety of home projects, from minor repairs to major remodels. Homeowners can read reviews, compare prices, and book appointments at HomeAdvisor.com.
It's just about 2:30 here at Minnesota Public Radio News. A program reminder on today's Climate Cast coming up in about 20 minutes, as well as later on All Things Considered, why a warming climate can mean more intense snowfalls. We'll hear from a photographer about the changes she's seen in the Arctic, and meteorologist Paul Huttner talks with Nobel Prize winner Mario Molina, who will be in town next week to inspire the next generation of scientists. That's on Climate Cast coming up this afternoon.
On NewsHour, in the next 30 minutes, Cuba's new president addresses the country. Did he strike a different tone from the Castros? Ahead of next week's summit, the South Korean president says a denuclearized North Korea is a real possibility. Why the president of the Philippines